Hey everybody, Ian Campbell here with Mission Suite, and as promised, I have my notes here that I took from the kind of as a follow-up from our conversation on Tuesday to talk about how to build out marketing personas and why they're important. Now, I talked a little bit about why they're important on Tuesday. I kind of did a little bit of an intro on it, but I figured I'd kind of dive a little bit deeper into this one. First of all, as I mentioned, creating a marketing persona is a key aspect of targeting your marketing efforts. Without a clear persona, or more than likely multiple personas, you're really just kind of taking that spray and pray approach to any sort of advertising or marketing that you're doing, and you're not really going and doing any sort of real targeting at all. You may think that you are, but realistically, if you don't know who you're targeting, you really don't know the things about them that you need to know, then you're really just you're for both as far as messaging and placement are concerned, you're not going to be hitting the mark. You may find a squirrel from time to time, but even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then, right? So your personas are what are going to tell you what your target prospects are, who your target prospects are, what they're interested in, and why and where they're spending their time. So obviously, three of the big things, or one of the big things in marketing anyway, is placement, right? And so knowing where your people are spending your time is super important, because if the roles that you're targeting are only spending time on online magazines and don't have Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or anything like that, then why are you going to post? Why are you posting your ads on Facebook? Why aren't you saving the money and redirecting it into an online magazines, things like that, right? Next thing, if your messaging is, think about this, if your messaging is all sci-fi related, for example, right? I mean, you kind of assume that your target market is big into Star Wars or something like that, so you start talking about how excited, all the great things about Star Wars, and kind of relating a lot of your messaging back to that. But maybe your persona, the folks that you're targeting, are actually into outdoor sports or active sports, right? And while the two aren't necessarily mutually exclusive, again, you want to focus your time and your effort and your energy on things that are going to land, right? And so if your market is more engaged by action sports, then maybe relating everything to skateboarding and half pipes is going to be better off than relating it to Star Wars and Star Trek. So a couple different some things to consider there. And of course, also if like I mentioned, if your audience is hanging on to Facebook and you are spending your money on LinkedIn and your audience isn't there, then you're just throwing money down the drain. So a few things to kind of keep in mind there. And so what I want to do is I want to kind of lead you through how the steps that I go through to build out my personas. And so again, yours is going to be different. This is kind of a framework that I take because I've been using this for 15 years and it's worked pretty well for me. Yours is you're going to have to have a conversation with somebody, or kind of think about how to apply these same concepts to your own market. For example, I sell B2B. Right? So if you're selling B2C, then obviously this is going to be a different conversation. A lot of the points are going to be the same, but the details are going to be different. So for example, I have 3 possible decision makers and 2 main influencers that I need to take into account when I'm doing my marketing, right? And so those decision makers are either the director or VP of sales, the director or VP of marketing, somebody in that realm, or the business owner or CEO, right? So the folks that kind of make those final decisions for the company. The influencers that I work with are sales managers and sales staff, and marketing managers and marketing staff. So those folks that are doing kind of that day-to-day work, right? And so knowing those roles, first and foremost, helps me to define, of course, who I'm targeting and really what I'm saying. And I mean, this is kind of the high-level stuff, right? I mean, I'm hoping that if you are in B2B sales, at the very least, you know who you've got to be selling to. If you're not, then you might want to do some training and kind of maybe bring in some consulting efforts to figure all that stuff out, because it's kind of it's really the 101 stuff that you need to know before you start really doing any sales. But the next thing that I do after I kind of define those roles is I try to start to get into their heads at work. right? So I like to learn more about them, like what challenges are they commonly dealing with. Obviously the sales management and VP, the sales leadership rather, like VP of sales, director of sales, are going to have different challenges than the day-to-day challenges of a salesperson, right? What problems do they want solved? If I'm pitching landing pages and the only problem that my marketing folks, that the marketing folks in this target company of mine is are focusing on SEO, then again, it's not going to land because that's not the challenge that they want or the problem that they want solved. Next thing you know, who do they answer to? Who's above them, right? Even the CEO typically has a board of directors or an owner, and the owner has their employees and has their customers, and sometimes the board of directors of their own, or if nothing else, their spouse, right? That they have to answer to, or significant other, what have you. And then of course, who answers to them? Right? I mean, who's accountable to them? So if I'm talking to a sales management team or sales leader, the VP of sales, then I want to know do they have a sales manager? That's kind of that middle point between the sales team and themselves, right? So things like that. Who answers to them? What do they love about their job? What do they hate about their job? Where are they getting their information that's helping them become successful? And what sort of ongoing learning are they doing? So these are kind of some key questions that I like to ask myself and ask my clients when we're talking about kind of building out personas like this, because what it does is it helps me determine the messaging that I need to test, right? So I'm never just going to test one message, right? I'm always going to have multiple messages to be testing throughout for a number of different reasons, not the least of which that ad service these days is so well targeted and so intelligent that it'll actually help to define the messaging that works and kind of pick winners for you automatically. But it's also going to help me. It's also going to help me kind of figure out things like, okay, I can tell a salesperson that prospecting sucks, and I can tell you 3 ways to avoid doing it. But if that message lands on a VP of Sales's desk or in their inbox or what have you, then I'm probably going to be a little bit of trouble, because the VP of Sales isn't going to want to talk to somebody who's telling their sales team that they shouldn't be cold calling, right? That they shouldn't be prospecting because there's a better way to do it. And of course, everybody should be prospecting. I'm just going to make that disclaimer right now, but you get the point. So things like that, because the head of sales is going to tell me is not going to like the same message that the sales team is going to like. So knowing kind of what they don't like about their job, like for example, I know a lot of VPs of sales that hate the fact that their salespeople refuse to use their CRM. Right? And so adoption of CRM is a big thing that I can talk about, right? It may or may not land, I don't know, but it's a big thing that I can talk about. So knowing that and kind of knowing getting in their heads at work helps me kind of determine that message. So next, what I like to do is actually I like to dive into their head personally, within their personal lives, right? Get to know a bit more about them on a one-on-one basis, right? How old are they? Do these roles tend to be more male or more female, right? I mean, and of course those things change over the course of time for sure. But if right now the vast majority of my VPs of sales are all men, it's not necessarily as an advertiser, it's not my job to change that. It's my job to serve ads that they're looking for, right? So I need to know if they're kind of where things skew. I want to know, are they married? Do they have kids? What do they do for fun? What makes them laugh? What excites them? Where do they live? Are they in a house in the suburbs? Are they in an apartment in a city? Are they in a loft? Are they happy with their lives, right? Are they content with where they are? Or and what are their goals? What do they want to accomplish? What do they want to personally? What do they want to get better at? And you may think that this is getting a little kind of creepy, but to be storing that information, and sometimes it can be, depending on how you're using it. But really, what this does is, on a personal level, when you're able to dive into that information, is it helps you to determine the creative aspect of your messaging and of your marketing messaging, your ads, etc. So videos, infographics, images, pictures, things like that. Again, going back to the concept of if I think that everybody that's my target is super into sci-fi, But the reality of it is that 90% of them are actually super into action sports, then, the creative isn't going to land. And creative is really what kind of drives that emotional aspect to it, right? That emotional urge to check it out, to click, to read more, right? So I want to know is, if I'm marketing to my wife, I know that babies and dogs are the way to get a hold, or the way to connect with her, right? But then again, if I'm marketing to somebody else, right, your husband or your wife, then I don't know. That's something that I need to figure out, because if your significant other has no interest in babies and doesn't like dogs, but in fact is a cat person, then a dog and a baby ad aren't going to do anything for you, for them rather. So things like that, they help me to kind of develop to bring that to really kind of trigger that creative emotion that we look for to get people to click on a link. And then finally, of course, I find out where they spend their time online. So are they on Facebook? Of course they're on Facebook. Everybody's on Facebook, right? Even after all the Cambridge Analytica stuff. But how are they using it now? Are they actually active on Facebook, or are they just going on when they get a notification that their grandkids posted pictures, or their kids posted pictures of their grandkids, or whatever the case might be? Are they actually spending time on LinkedIn, or are they just going on there whenever they get a notification that somebody new requested a connection to them, and just accepting it and then jumping back off? So things like, because again, it's going to help me determine where I'm actually going to spend my money and where I'm going to go. Are they on Google? Are they on Twitter? Are they on Quora? Or Pinterest? Whatever, wherever they are, where are they, right? And where are they truly spending their time? And there's a bunch of different ways you can get this information. We're going to actually talk about this next, but it's really important, because again, especially for a guy like me, we're a small business, we have a limited budget, and even with bigger companies, you don't want to waste your budget. So make sure that you know where to place your messaging, where to place your ads, so that you can actually have a shot at getting people to click on it. So how do we get this information? So let's kind of spend a little bit of time on that here. So first of all, survey your current clients, survey your customers, right? Make sure that you're talking to the people that are already doing business with you, because they are going to help you to they're going to be your best source of information, right? Find the people that are best, and then try to replicate those. So that's number one. Number two, find industry and networking groups that you can actually meet these people directly. Go talk to people, right? A lot of this stuff, I know you can find a ton of stuff online, but I can promise you that nothing is going to be as effective as actually having a conversation with people. So host a seminar, host a networking event, host a happy hour, right? Go to a happy hour, whatever you need to do. But if your target is VPs of sales, figure out where they hang out, figure out where they spend their time, or their salespeople, or what have you. Talk to other people around them, find out more about that stuff, and then go from there, because it's good. Like I said, it's gonna help quite a bit. And then finally, and this is the big one, store this information inside your CRM. Right, and get this. So build out these custom fields in your CRM. Build out fields for what social networks are they on? Where are they finding information? Are they married? Are they single? Are they in an apartment? Are they all these different things that I just talked about? I can build those. I can build out custom fields for that in my CRM, and that way I don't have to rely on other people's data, because Facebook's data is fantastic. Google's data is fantastic, and it's going to do a lot for you, but you're being able to create your own persona data inside of your CRM, like Mission Suite, for example. We can create a bunch of different custom fields, fill out that information, and then report on that later on, so that I can see exactly how many people are as an affinity group like whiskey, or enjoy the arts, or cigars, or whatever the case might be, right? And so I know how to have a conversation with them. And as you start to collect more and more information on more and more people, you're going to be able to identify that. So last thing that I want to kind of talk about as you're building these out, kind of my last note, pro tip kind of a thing here. So when you're doing this, get off of your computer. get off of the computer, go analog, and get away from and just get away from the laptop. Use a whiteboard, use post-it notes, use something that you can use that you can step back from and get a global view of what your personas look like, because it's going to prevent distractions as well, which is a benefit, right? But it's also going to help you visualize how these different persona traits are actually kind of forming themselves, and it's gonna be super helpful moving forward. So, and your computer just does not allow that. So Johnny, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us. Facebook and Google take their access away whenever they feel like it. That is very true. Own data is yours to keep. Johnny makes a great point here that if you've got it, you've got it, right? So think about this is an interesting point that Facebook with the way that they've changed their algorithms these days, right? A lot of people spend a lot of money trying to build big audiences for their Facebook page, right? So I've got 18,000 people on my Facebook page. I've got 100,000 people on my Facebook page. Whatever the case might be, now all of a sudden that reach is going down, which used to be 50, 60, 70% is now dropping into single, low double digits. So I mean, people spend a lot of money kind of trying to create that, kind of build the well, so to speak, so that they could kind of keep going back to it. And now a lot of people, most people that did that are wishing that they had spent that time creating an email list, because they would own it instead. So that is a big thing to focus on. So, but yeah. So anyway, for today, again, focus. I can't stress enough. Take this away from your computer when you're building out these personas, because it's going to be really important. And spend the time to do it. Because otherwise you're just not going to have the information, and in the long run, I can almost promise you, you're going to waste a ton of money. So on Tuesday, I'm going to be back on here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about building out avatars based on these persona traits. That way, and why it helps to actually solidify that those different personas in your mind and in your your conversations, because it's and show you how that can be really helpful when you're creating these things. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you all have a very great weekend. Cheers.